I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. Well, my first guest, my very first guest is Vistage Chair Nigel Alexander, and actually, Nigel, this is a trifecta of firsts for us together because you were the first Vistage Chair to book me as a speaker. I spoke at the first group that you led by yourself. And now you're the first guest on the podcast. So that's pretty cool.
So many firsts. So
Many,
exciting.
so exciting. So you've got, I want to get into, I want to hear about your story as a business leader. But first, I actually wanted to talk about, you had an unconventional path to being a Vistage chair.
I did. I joined a Vistage group 25 years ago, starting in 1998 as a young entrepreneur leading a telecommunications business, and found Vistage to be one of the cornerstones of my adult education and my life. And I stayed in a group which was chaired by Gene Maxwell for 25 years. And then when he decided to retire last year, I had finished with full-time employment, and we discussed the possibility of me taking over the group, and that's what happened. I took over the group that I'd been a member of for 25 years in June of last year.
And that's just remarkable. I mean, number one, so you hear about Vistage members that have been with Vistage for a very long time. I've got one in my group that's been with Vistage for, I want to say 15 or 20 years. But to be in the same group with the same chair for 25 years and then to just take over the group feels like a really unique journey.
Yeah, it really is. And group takeovers and transitions are fraught with difficulties. You know, it's complex going from being a member of the group to a completely different role as the facilitator and chair of the group. And I guess time will tell whether I've done a good job of that or not, but nobody has voted with their feet so far, so it must be going okay.
You're about a year in now.
I am. We've just passed the year mark. We did a full review of the 1 year through an external marketing agency who surveyed all of our members and led a 2-hour Vistage session, deciding on what went right, what went wrong, what they would like to improve upon, and what they think is perfection. And there was plenty to improve upon, I'm happy to tell you.
I think that's all of our journey all the time.
Yeah.
How was that transition for you though? What was it like? Because you had known now your members, they had been your peers for, probably some of them had been your peers for a number of years. And now all of a sudden you're in this completely different seat, different role in the meeting, different place in their lives. How have you navigated that?
Yeah, it was tricky. You know me well enough to know that I'm somewhat outspoken and have opinions on most things. With 40 years of business experience and 25 years in Vistage, I was probably a fairly strong member in terms of my contributions to problem solving and what members needed, and to start to take a back seat in terms of just providing facilitation and letting all of the other members lead the discussions, and still not withholding my opinions, but certainly waiting until the very end to see if I had anything different and unusual to add that people hadn't thought of was a change for me, and not altogether an easy one. I've taken a lot of classes, and I have to write myself a lot of notes on how to behave as a facilitator more than a member.
I have no problem visualizing you being an outspoken Vistage member.
Yeah.
So what was your initial path to Vistage? You mentioned 25 years ago, young entrepreneur. How did you come to Vistage?
Yeah, I was actually in a Denver Metro Chamber CEO group. They lead some sort of fairly lightweight half day CEO groups. I've no idea whether they still do them, but I was active in the chamber for business development purposes and community involvement. And I ran across Gene Maxwell, who at the time was also involved in the chamber, was forming this Vistage group. He asks me if I'd be interested. I met with a couple of the other people that were in the group, and it seemed like a good idea, and it certainly proved to be so.
What was your business at the time?
Was running a telecommunications business, telecommunications and small business commuting. It was called Multilink, and we were a competitive local exchange carrier, one of the new breed of telecom companies that were created by the Telecommunications Act of 1996, which eliminated the monopoly for what was then Mountain Bell and
Hmm.
what was it called then? I can't even remember. Became CenturyLink, Quest,
Oh, yes,
um,
Quest. But
and
but it was
now
something else before Quest too.
it was, yeah, US West. There we go.
Yes. Very cool. Well, so what was your uh, what was your business? So telecommunications. I know you've had a number of other ventures. I know you've sold a number of businesses as well. What? Tell me about what your 40 years of experience that led you into the big chair at a Vistage Group. What was that like?
Yeah. Well, I started my career as an 18-year-old straight out of high school. I didn't actually go to college. Yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm not from Colorado. I'm from England. And in
Oh,
England,
I
a
was
much
thinking New
smaller,
Jersey.
yeah, I usually tell people East Texas, but then they just laugh.
There you go.
Only
Very
four,
East Texas.
only 4% of high school graduates went to university when I graduated high school in 1979. So I started work in banking, commercial banking, and learned the business of finance. Moved down into the City of London, which is the equivalent of Wall Street. Worked for merchant banking, which is kind of like your investment banking, but encompasses both debt and equity sides of the balance sheet. So learned finance, worked in London, Paris, France, Geneva, Switzerland, until I was about 30 when the bank I was working for got acquired. And they decided they had no further need for my services. It was one of those mergers where there was a lot of elimination of duplicates. And so they put some money in my pocket, really for the first time, because I didn't come from money. So I looked around the world and said, well, I wonder what it's like out there. And I called everybody I knew and said, what's it like where you live? I called people in London and Scandinavia and pretty much all over. And only one guy put his hand up and said, this is paradise. And he lived in Denver, Colorado. So I
Okay.
thought, well, that's it's still ski season. I'll go out and take a look and see what Denver has to offer. And sure enough, he was right. And I absolutely fell in love with Denver. This is in 1991, just as I turned 30. And I decided I would come and take a look. And
It was a different city then.
it surely was. Downtown ended at Glenarm. That was about the end of it. There was no Lodo. There was no baseball diamond. It was a
Nope.
very different town, but still a great place.
Excellent. And you've been here ever since.
I have. I had a couple of diversions. I built one business, sold it to some folks in Minnesota, went to live there for 6 months. Frankly, the worst 6 months of my life. Sorry, Minnesotans, but October through March in Minnesota was not fun for me. And then I had one more journey down to Florida for 6 months. But apart from that, 30 years straight here in Denver, yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What's as you moved into a coaching role with your members, what's what's your coaching style like? What's it? How do you how do you help your members move forward in their businesses and in their lives?
Well, Vistage is very clear that we are coaches and not consultants. The role of the Vistage chair is very much to be a coach. And I'm still honestly struggling with that a bit. I have some very specialized knowledge in the areas of finance, banking, debt, equity, accounting. And I do find myself mixing coaching with consulting a little bit, which my members seem to like. That there's no question that people will make more progress when you simply point them in the right direction. But I'm a part coach and part specialist in some of those areas, which I actually like.
It gives you an opportunity to help
It
shortcut.
does.
Yeah, when sometimes you just know the answer, and that's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the truth. And sometimes you can shortcut straight to the answer, and sometimes having specialized knowledge that doesn't exist elsewhere in their world makes that very helpful.
uh, and to be truthful, as a Vistage member myself, even for 5 years, not 25, I've got 20% of your tenure. Uh, even just having that perspective is really helpful when you're the member and you're at your one-to-one and you're getting that help from your chair, and even just having that other point of view is so very helpful, and sometimes that perspective is more forceful than it is at other times, but totally understood. You've seen a lot in Vistage, being in the peer group environment for 25 years. What's what's the and without violating any trust or confidentiality, what's the most sort of life-changing thing that you've ever seen processed in a Vistage meeting?
My goodness. Wow. Well, the great thing about Vistage is it covers the whole human being. We're not there, just to teach people how to sell another widget or collect an accounts receivable or even, do a merger. We're there to treat may not be the right word, but to address the whole person holistically. We've had divorces, we've had drug addicted children, we've had companies going bankrupt, we've had the opposite end of the scale of people achieving enormous successes through selling their own businesses. My own sale to Dish Network probably wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been in the Vistage group and sought the advice of my very smart peers. But it really does address everything that goes on in our lives. And I would say it's not quite 50-50 in terms of personal life and business activities. It's probably 65-35, but we engage our spouses. If you ask any of the spouses of our Vistage members whether they would like their husbands or wives to leave the group, they say, hell no, because, it gives them a place to take some of their challenges and problems and think through things. But there's been some pretty hairy issues. There's certainly been some tears shed and some champagne drunk. So, Eric, it's one end of the spectrum to the other, as I'm sure you know from your own group.
Absolutely. What's the who and you've had me, so I don't want to skew that, but who's your favorite speaker? What was the speaker that you, either as a chair or as a member, saw that really just kind of changed your world?
Yeah. If you asked my 14 members, I think you'd get 14 different answers. But for me, I always focused on the speakers that helped me improve as a leader and as a human being rather than technical business subjects. And probably one of my favorites is Todd Musselman. Todd lives up in
I love
Steamboat
Todd.
Springs, Colorado, and every time I hear Todd, and I've probably heard him 3 or 4 times, I take away some tidbit that really changes my life. And my approach to speakers, we get them typically for 2 to 3 hours. If they leave me with one single snippet or one single idea that I can implement to make my life better and the life of my members better, then I'm happy. And Todd Musselman never fails to do that.
Todd is incredible, and he has. So I've been a Vistage member for 5 years, and I think that there's only maybe one other speaker that's spoken to us multiple times in that span. Todd has spoken to our group 3 times in 5 years, and every single time it's like just happy to see him. It's like, oh my God, I'm gonna get something good today. It's never the same thing twice. He's incredible. So that's a really great one.
Every year we have a couple of meetings where we invite spouses, and Todd is always a fan favorite from for the members and the spouses, and just a remarkable human being.
What is the best advice that you have professional advice that you have heard in your groups, either as a chair or a member, that you just wish that you knew when, 25 years ago when you first joined? What's the thing you've learned that you would go back and tell yourself if you could?
Yeah, I would tell people that business and life is all about people. When I was a younger version of myself, chasing sort of finance dreams and technical business dreams, I think I tended to misappreciate or fail to appreciate that everything is around human beings and relationships. It's all about the people that you work with. It's about the people you interact with, your suppliers, your vendors, your bankers. But if you ever forget that it's anything more than a collection of people working for a common goal and a common good, then you underachieve. And I missed that for a decade.
What have you and question, because I don't know the answer, but have you taken on any new members since you started as a chair, or is it the same core group?
No, no, the group was down to about 9 members when I took it over. Whenever you have a chair retiring, there tends to be a little bit of a loss of energy. So
Sure.
we've added 5 more members since I took over a year ago. We sit at 14 right now. I'm going to add a couple more before the end of this year. But the group is growing steadily at one a quarter, which was the goal I set myself. But I'm very, very picky about who we bring in. Our group is very specialized. We are business owners only. We don't have hired guns. We don't have companies that are private equity backed or venture backed or M&A driven. We're a collection of 14 small business owners with revenues 5 to 25 million, all building businesses, building lives, building companies for our community, and that's the profile that we take. We don't take anybody else.
When somebody comes to you and says, I'm thinking about doing this, or I want to talk about doing this, what's the best advice that you could give somebody that's actively looking for that peer group experience?
Yeah. Um, so most people, when they look at the time commitment of Vistage, which is a full day a month, and the fees that Vistage charges, which are not, insubstantial, there tends to be a sort of a what's in it for me approach. And I go the exact opposite way. I say you'll get the most out of a Vistage group when you figure out what you can contribute and what you can put into it. And then you will get back what you put in tenfold. So don't sort of talk to me about a what's in it for me attitude. Expect me to sell Vistage to you, because I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask you what you can do for the group.
Ask not what your country can do for you.
Something like
That
that.
sort of thing.
Something like that.
Very cool, Nigel. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. What's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
You can reach me through LinkedIn. I'm linkedin.com, Nigel Alexander. Um, I'll give you a phone number if you like, but that seems,
That's okay. Well,
yeah, no, you'll find me
people
through.
people know
You'll
LinkedIn,
find
and
me.
we'll put your link in the show notes and all that. So
Yeah.
thank you, Nigel. I really appreciate you coming. I really appreciate you sharing your story. Really incredible, and thank you for being first.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. Always happy to go first with you, Eric. It always seems to work out well.
You know what? We're three for three. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer, while I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.